Hi, Sue here. Welcome back. This week is all about tricky behaviour and boundary testing, and I've got to admit, I need to start with a confession. This week, my behaviour has also been tricky as well as Will's. Um, a couple of days ago, I really hurt my toe. I've been through childbirth, I know what pain is. This made childbirth look like a walk in the park. My right big toe is in a real state, it's really sore. And I'd warned Will 2 or 3 times, just don't go near mummy's toe, be very careful near mummy's toe. And about half an hour after the warnings, he dropped a piece of Lego right on the sorest spot. So, like a calm, measured, mature adult, I shouted at him really loudly. And then, of course, he shouted back, burst into tears, and ran into the lounge saying, I don't want mummy near me. So, not my finest parenting moment. What I've realised this week is that actually I have less capacity to cope with his tricky behaviour because I'm actually also probably more stressed than I normally would be. And if I'm really honest with you, on the toe incident morning, I'd had a couple of glasses of wine the night before, hadn't had as much sleep as I should have done, obviously hadn't been for my run because of the dodgy toe. So I was not in the best state of mind to respond in a calm, mature, model parent manner. So the starting point, I think, when we're talking about tricky behaviour is just the realisation that our own behaviour might be more tricky and challenging than it normally would be, and our own feelings are probably heightened with worry and stress, and just this sense of having so much to deal with, both at home and with work during lockdown. So what I'm going to be doing this week is try and self-manage a little bit better, perhaps not have 2 glasses of wine on a weeknight, and give myself a little bit more time to recover when I am tired and give myself a bit more of a routine during the day so that I can cope when Will is tricky. So, thinking about planning for his behaviour this week, I'm going to ensure that I try and get the basics right, making sure that he eats well, that he doesn't just live on ice cream, which he was heavily focusing on last week because it was such lovely weather. So we're having a bit more of a balanced diet this week. Absolutely no fizzy pop in our house. I'm a bit militant about this because it's so full of caffeine that it will make him really hyper, and I know that he won't sleep properly if he has that. So he's going to be having milk and water and just some sort of fairly boring but nourishing drinks this week. And we're going to be having, as we normally do actually, a very steady, calm sleep routine so that actually there is some sense that bedtime is a calm time. So that's our kind of basics in place to make sure that I'm not setting myself up for him to behave in a way that is really, really tricky. The next thing that we are trying to deal with in this house is Alexa's incredible ability to produce fart noises, which Will has discovered over the last few days. And where boundaries are being tested in the kitchen, it's all to do with asking Alexa to produce different fart noises. Now, a couple of days ago, I found this very irritating, to be honest with you. I do not like any kind of toilet humour at the best of times, and I really don't want it while I'm eating my breakfast. However, I've had to just take a step back with this and think about battles and wars. It's probably a 5 out of 10 for me in terms of irritation, but it's probably a 10 out of 10 for Will in terms of excitement and fun. So we've had to accept that as long as the fart noises are not happening during meal times, and as long as there's only a maximum of 5 fart noises at any time, that's as good as it's going to get. So we've thought a little bit about boundary testing and where we insist that boundaries are firm. Places like manners, for example, that is absolutely incontrovertible. Rudeness is not tolerated. But things like silly fart noises and some silly behaviours that perhaps we wouldn't really normally tolerate, we've had to relax on a little bit. Because actually there's no point in making every day a battle. We're all here, we're all in the house, lockdowns week after week after week. I don't want it to be a war zone, and it's not worth having a big argument about farting, frankly. So in terms of trying to think about supporting Will to behave in a way that is not irritating and also quite productive, we're thinking about some sort of routine during the day where we go out, we feed the ducks each morning, we have a little bit of a walk, we do a little bit of home learning and some exercise. And then if he's starting to be a pain, I'm finding that distraction is a really, really good technique. And if you've got a young child, I'm sure you're probably doing this as well. So distracting with whatever he's interested in. So it might be that we play a game together or we do some baking together. If we are thinking about him being perhaps overstimulated, then it might be that we distract with a film that he wants to watch and we just snuggle down and we watch a film for a couple of hours in an afternoon. We wouldn't do that in a normal week, but it isn't a normal week. And actually, sometimes it's about calming things down and just spending that one-to-one time with him. And in terms of my experience with the toe incident, it was actually a really good opportunity for me to model how to say sorry and how to repair a situation that had gone wrong. This is my reframe of the toe incident, but I think it's probably a valid one. Will needs to understand that grown-ups have tricky feelings and really difficult moments, and that they make mistakes. If he never sees me make a mistake and he sees this perfect, calm, rational behaviour all the time, how can he relate to that when he is having a big feeling and acting up? Actually, by talking to him about the fact that I hadn't behaved very well, apologising when he was ready for the apology to be heard, and having a cuddle afterwards, I've modelled for him what helps things to get better after we've made a mistake. A clinical psychologist that I work with told me a couple of years ago that the brain's executive functioning is actually not fully developed until we're about 25 years old. So the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain which controls things like emotional regulation and decision making and executive functioning, isn't actually ready to go fully until we're 25. Now, I'm 43 and I still sometimes get things quite badly wrong, as the toe incident illustrates. So I can't expect a 5.5-year-old or a 10 or a 15-year-old to get things right all the time and to behave in a calm and rational manner. And actually, when we put things into that context, there is an opportunity to just think about our children and what they need. Actually, when they're having a massive moment of a big feeling, anger, frustration, sadness, whatever it is, the best thing we can do at that time is to just contain them. It's not about fixing it. It's not about escalating it with a shouting match where they get crosser and we get crosser. Just trying to be calm, containing the storm that they are rolling through in that moment, and then coming back and chatting about it afterwards and thinking about maybe how we might respond differently and what we can learn from that experience. It's probably the best thing we can do at that time as a parent. The storm will pass, and the storm of lockdown will pass too. Thank you very much for being with me today. I'll look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll be chatting about maths next week. Take care, have a good week, and see you soon.